We finally made it to the NBA Finals. I can't believe we're at this point of the season. It's gone so quick, but the playoffs have been great. I'm super excited for this matchup, even though it's a small market matchup. I still think it's going to be great basketball. It's really for the hoopers that really love this, and I'm just excited to see this matchup and let's get into it. The thing that stood out to me the most when it comes to both of these teams and the reason why they are in this position, why they are, is I think it personally is due to their depth. OKC has been a dominant team all year, and again, it's been part of the plan that they've been really constructing the last couple years with the numerous draft picks that they've had since the Paul George trade, also acquiring Shai in the trade as well, and they've just been accumulating great players through the draft over the last couple years, and then they made a couple key free agency signings last year as well with Caruso and Hartenstein, and that really got them over the hump, at least for me this year. It just added a little bit more veteran presence and just made them a little bit more of a multi-dimensional team, if you want to call it that. So their depth has played a huge role in why they are where they are today. And then when you get to, obviously, the Pacers, again, it's a lot of their depth. It's a lot of their depth because they don't have necessarily as many stars as OKC does. I mean, the whole team really runs through Haliburton. You can say Miles Turner and Siakam are very good basketball players in the NBA, but I wouldn't say they're stars, at least at this point. They can be on some nights, but they're not stars. But still, they had a ton of depth. You have Nimhart, Neesmith. Again, you also have McConnell coming off the bench. And those are just the scorers. You also have Obi Toppin, who can also score a little bit, but play some decent defense as well. You have Thomas Bryant coming off the bench. There's a couple guys that really can make an impact for Indiana as well. So again, both these teams have gotten here because of their depth. It played a crucial role in a majority of their series that they've had. But specifically for the Pacers, the depth, in my opinion, was the ultimate X factor against the Knicks, where the Knicks, they love to play that starting five. The Pacers like to they like to give different looks with the different amount of guys out there, and just they do different things, again, because they have so much depth, and they are such a relentless team because of that, because it aids in their scoring. And then, of course, with OKC, I mean, the depth that they had compared to Minnesota was, of course, crucial. Yes, they had better players overall, but when you really look at it team for team, they were just a lot deeper than Minnesota, and they had a lot more guys that they could rely on compared to Minnesota. So again, I think the depth played a crucial role in getting both these teams into the NBA Finals. I thought it was interesting with both these teams that it was almost a yin and yang kind of thing with them. OKC got here, in my opinion, because of their defense as well. The defense has played, again, a huge factor all season, but also within the playoffs as well. They, again, just were suffocating teams, consistently creating multiple turnovers. You then score off of those. It really can be an X factor within these games. And Indiana had a decent amount of turnovers forced as well. But I really think what got them here was more their offense. Again, not saying that OKC's offense is bad in any way. It's obviously not. But if you've been watching the playoffs and even parts of the season, specifically the end of the season, Indiana's offense is just so dynamic. They get on these runs, they hit these threes, they can attack you in the paint. They just have so many ways to score, and then they also capitalize on the fast break, and they play with a lot of pace, and that's something not a lot of teams can say, but that's something that Indiana really, really specializes on. Their team really is just built for it, and again, that's one of the reasons why they are here, and I just thought it was interesting because it's pretty much, again, OKC more being leaning on their defense and the depth that they have in that end, and then you look at Indiana, who has a lot of high-volume scorers, but they also, again, have such a deep rotation. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting looking at this series. So we're going to look at a couple matchups when looking at this series. And the first one I want to look at is, can both the stars of each team, can they show up in these big moments? Now, I don't really have any concern for Shai. I mean, he's quite literally won MVP this year. There's not much more you can ask for him. He really has showed up in almost every single playoff game at this point, and he's showed up in a lot of closeout games as well, which, again, is something that I value. If you've been watching me, I very much value that, at least when it comes to holding a guy to a star levels of accountability. That's something that I value. So I've really thought that was a huge part for him. And then when you look at Haliburton, He's been very good as well. There's been occasional games where he's been a little eh. I would say the only game that I didn't really love out of Haliburton, at least recently, was that game 5 for the Knicks. 2 for 7 on shooting, on 8 points. Just not going to cut it for me in a closeout game. But overall, I still think that Haliburton has been very consistent. He's been a great defender. He's been showing a lot of effort on that end. And then, of course, he is the general. He gets the guys involved. He's getting rebounds. He has, numerous games with 10 plus assists. And then he has that lethal 3-point shooter. And when that shot is on, it is almost Steph Curry-like. It's very weird. It's a weird shot. It's like he doesn't jump almost. But, man, he can really hit from deep, and he can really be a threat. So I'm curious to see, can both of these stars show up for their teams? I think they can. I would definitely lean towards Shai just because, again, he's the MVP. How could you not? But still, I think both of these guys are going to show up, and I think that's crucial for even making this series competitive in general. Another interesting point is both teams like to play with their food. And when I say teams like to play with their food, it means that they don't like to close out the other team in an opportunity where it looks very good for them and they just don't do it. First, let's start with the Thunder. Not much of it with the Minnesota Timberwolves. They did a very good job with that, in my opinion. But what I think of is a lot of the games that they lost to with the Nuggets. Excuse me. They had numerous chances to close out the Nuggets. I mean, even that game 1 where they lost on a buzzer beater. The Nuggets, they came back in that game. There was an opportunity there. They didn't have to go to a game 7. They could have won that game on the road. Jalen Williams didn't show up. So there have been a couple moments, which is expected because they still are a young team. And again, they haven't won a championship. But there are times where it's like, man, does OKC really have that killer instinct that you like out of a championship team? And then when you look at Indiana, you could say the same thing. I mean, even this last series that we had against the Knicks, they had the opportunity to go up 3-0 at home. 3-0 at home in Game 3. And they were up by, I think, 15, 20 points, something like that. And Cat made that run and got the Knicks back in the series. Even in Game 5, like I've mentioned, they just showed, in my opinion, awful effort. They did not match the intensity of the Knicks. And they decided to go play a Game 6 in Indiana. Yes, of course, they ended up winning the series. But when it comes to, again, playing with their food, both these teams have done that this playoff run. And I think that's something that, it might play a factor in potentially extending this series longer than it maybe should be. Just because, again, both these teams, they don't necessarily have the killer instinct at crucial times. They still get the job done. But again, it could have been done a little easier. And that's something I'm going to be looking for in this series. Another matchup is, can either team handle the momentum and the runs that both of these teams go on? Can they combat that? First, let's start with OKC. Again, as I mentioned, it's their defense. Their defense can be suffocating to the point where it really can lead teams into serious scoring droughts. And the game that I think of when I discuss this is Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals versus the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves had 9 points in the first quarter. Yes, they weren't shooting great that night either, but still, you have to give a lot of credit to OKC's defense. And then once you are down that much just in the first quarter, it's going to become even harder to score because obviously that's what the other team, they know you have to do at this point. And again, OKC just starts building on that. And I think they were up by 30 at halftime, something like that. So it can be very suffocating to play against OKC, and again, with all the depth that they have. And then when we look at Indiana, they made so many runs against the Knicks. I can't mention them all, but the one that comes to mind for me, and it probably is coming to mind for you guys as well, is that fourth quarter comeback in Game 1 to steal the game and ultimately force it to overtime. I mean, they were completely out of that game. They were out of that game. I don't know what the statistics are, but the chance of Indiana winning that game was so slim. But they came back, and a lot of that was due to the Nesmith three-point shots. But still, they got their offense going. They were flowing. The Knicks could not combat it. It's just, again, a lot of these, both of these teams, they go on these runs, and again, it's just like a little, it's like a blink. It's all of a sudden, you could just be down by a ton just from a couple threes or some good defense from OKC, It just can be very suffocating, and it's a lot to combat in the moment, and that's something that we're going to have to see. Can the coaches call proper timeouts? Can players make the adjustments within real time to combat these? Because again, these decide games. Like, these decide games, and it's the finals. You don't have time to, again, experiment with lineups or do this or that. You have to win 4 games, and then you're a champion. So you really got to come after it, and again, if these runs are occurring, will either team be able to stop them and at least limit the blow? Because again, runs are going to happen, but overall, can you stop the bleeding and at least make it doable to come back in the game? And kind of just continuing on this point, can the OKC defense stop the Pacers offense? And that's something that I'm really going to be looking for, because Indiana is such a good passing team, specifically Haliburton. I think he's a great passer. Like I said, he is the general of that team. He's the facilitator, and he really gets guys in their spots. He has great looks. He just does a great job. And you even have McConnell off the bench still running the offense at times. And I'm just curious, specifically for Haliburton, can he handle being harassed by Lou Dort, Caruso, maybe even a little bit of SGA, Jalen Williams? Like, we don't know. I just think specifically Dort and Caruso, they need to be on him in this series all game. Every single game, they need to be on this guy as much as they can, because they need to make it difficult for him to score, number one. And number two, they need to get the ball out of his hands, because that obviously limits his scoring. But if they can even make some of those passes be a little forced, again, that's what OKC does best. They capitalize off of that. So I'm curious, can they handle that? And then I guess roles reversed, can the Pacers, can they overcome that defense? Can they hit their shots in these big moments? Can we have another game or two where Nesmith decides to drop 30 points and score, 20, 23, or whatever, however many points it was in that fourth quarter versus the Knicks in game 1? Guys on the Pacers are going to have to do that, because again, like I said, Haliburton is the primary target for the OKC defenders. He is going to have to distribute the ball at some point. Can some of these guys step up? I'm really looking at Nesmith and Nembhard, because I know Siakam's going to get his, Turner will get his, but can those two really be the scorers that at least hit the shots? Can they hit the shots and keep the team in it while at least helping, not necessarily the big three, I'm not going to call them the big three, but the top 3 players for the Pacers, can they just help them out a little bit and get some shot making from other teams? Because again, that's what made Indiana so good this year, and specifically in this playoff run, is you're getting points from Haliburton, you're getting points from Siakam, you're getting points from Turner, but then you're getting these games where you get potentially 20, 30 points from Nesmith, maybe you get 15 from Nembhard, and then you get even more guys down the bench. Like, that can be a huge X factor. So very curious to see how that really plays in this series as well. Now for my prediction. I want to be generous. I want to say it's going to be a 6-game series, but I've been a little too generous throughout this playoff series and just all these playoffs games in general. I've been a little too generous to the losing team. So I'm going to go try to be a little bit more, not cutthroat, but I don't know. I don't really know what to call it, but I have OKC in 5. I want to lean 6 just because, again, Indiana's been on this crazy run where they just steal games. And like I said, at times OKC lacks the killer instinct. But for me, it's just going to be really, really tough for Indiana to consistently compete in this game. In this series. And it's kind of what I mentioned earlier. It's just the fact that Haliburton is going to be getting harassed by numerous elite defenders. These are not just good defenders, they're elite defenders. So that concerns me a little bit as well. Also, when we look down low, yes, Miles Turner is playing pretty good, but you can work him a little bit defensively. I think Chet has been very good in the playoffs. I think he can at least score around 20-ish a game. And then also, let's say Turner gets in foul trouble, or they need to rest Chet a little bit. You can still go to Hartenstein. Hartenstein's not an elite scorer by any means, but he is a big body. Who are you going to on the Pacers if Turner has to get subbed out or has to go on the bench? Who are you going to go to? Yes, you have Thomas Bryant, but are we really relying on Thomas Bryant in 2025 to give us great minutes in a finals? He can here and there, but not defensively. So that's something that I think is going to be a huge factor as well. And that's just where, again, I think OKC can kind of limit this a little bit. And then overall, the deciding factor for me is OKC has a big three, and Indiana has one really, really, really good player, and then a lot of great players. And for me, again, Shai is the best player in this series. There's no debate. You then have Jalen Williams, who can, when he's on, give you a solid 20 to 30 points per game and some great defense. You have Chet, who's going to do a great job rebounding and scoring. He knows his role. And then when you look at the Pacers, yes, you have Haliburton, but if you have a game where, again, let's say Haliburton maybe scores, 15. If you're not getting a decent game out of Siakam, can the Pacers win that game? I don't think so. I just don't think so. So I'm just concerned that if Haliburton has a bad game or two, just scoring-wise, can the Pacers provide enough offensive scoring to combat OKC? And I just don't think they can. I think OKC get this one done. They've been a dominant team all year. I personally think they do deserve the title, but this is not how this works. We're here to watch sports. That's part of it. I just think OKC, they're the best team left. And I think they do, again, even out of the last 4 teams, they were the best team. I would have picked them against anyone. But I think OKC gets it done. I think they do get their first championship in the franchise's history, and it would be one hell of a way to cap off an MVP season from Shai, and it would be the full version of this team growing up. We've been hearing about this team the last couple of years. I mean, pretty much since the Paul George trade. Oh, what are all these draft picks going to turn into? Can Shai even be this level of player? We're seeing it right now, and I just think that they are going to finish it off in this series. So I have OKC in 5. Those are my predictions. That's all I got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys are thinking about this series. Drop your predictions down below. And if you like this video, feel free to give it a like. And if you like my type of content, feel free to subscribe. We're going to be continuing to break down the NBA playoffs as we continue to go through these finals. So yeah, stick with me if you enjoy it. And I will see you guys on the next one. Peace, guys.